We continue now at the top of Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph and Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 71a. The Gemara says that Rabbi Chama bar Chanina says when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Metar Shvatim, when he purifies the Shvatim, Rashi says it means Metar HaShvatim Miyachsim, meaning he takes care of their lineage, any issues with their lineage, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sorts out, so to speak. Shivto Shalevi Metar Tzchila. So the Shevet Levi, that's the first one that he purifies. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Vayesha Metzaref Umetar Kesef, V'tiras B'nei Levi, V'zikek Osam Kazav, V'chakesef, Vayu Hashem Magishay Mincha B'Tzedakah. The pasuk here is talking about the purification, and it talks about the Bnei Levi. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, Kesef Metahar Mamzerim. If you have money, that's also Metar Mamzerim. People want to marry them even though they have flawed lineage, but they have money. Shenemar, as it says, Vayesha Metzaref Umetar Kesef. And the Gemara says, "My magishay mincha b'tzedakah." What does the end of that pasuk mean when it says magishay mincha b'tzedakah? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Tzedakah asa Hakadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael." Hakadosh Baruch Hu does a tzedakah for Klal Yisrael. Shemishpacha shenitma nitma. That once a family, let's say it has flawed lineage, but it becomes assimilated into Klal Yisrael, so it becomes assimilated and it's no longer questioned. And Rashi says, "Kesef metar mamzerim hametum moim b'Yisrael machmas mamonam." Those who get assimilated among Klal Yisrael because of their money, v'ugorim lahem sheyitaru, and he causes them that they're purified. Shalasad lavo ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mavdilam, because in the future HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not separate them. Me'achar shenidbeku behem mishpachos Yisrael harbe, since they've already become assimilated with many families in Klal Yisrael. And Rashi continues, Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Vayeshem Mitzarif Umetar Kesef Osam Shenitmu Machmas Asham. Again, those who became assimilated because of their wealth. V'Sefer Dekrav Hayu LaHashem Magishay Mincha B'Tzedakah Tzedkazu Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pasuk means to say at the end that this is a tzedakah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sheinu Mavdilam, he doesn't separate them. Elahol Shenitmu Nitmu. Once they become assimilated, they become assimilated. And Rashi notes over here, interesting, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi Svirale. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he's holding to learn the pasuk as follows. Mitahar lav mavdil pesule and kamer, that when it says over here mitahar, it doesn't mean that he separates those out who have flawed lineage. That's not what the pasuk means according to Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Elam mitarim umachshirim kulam. What it actually means is he purifies them and he makes even those with flawed lineage, he makes them kosher as well. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Gufa, returning to what we said above. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda said that Shmuel said, Kol haratzos Isa l'Eretz Yisrael. All the lands are like Isa to Eretz Yisrael, meaning their lineage is flawed when compared to Eretz Yisrael. Ve'Eretz Yisrael Isa l'Bavel. In Eretz Yisrael, that has a flawed lineage relative to Bavel. And the Gemara says, B'mei Rebbe bikshu lasos Bavel Isa l'Eretz Yisrael. In the days of Rebbe, they wanted to make Bavel that should be Isa l'Eretz Yisrael. Rashi says what that means is, bikshu lasos Bavel Isa l'hachzik mishpachos Eretz Yisrael miyuchasos. They wanted to say that we should say that the families of Eretz Yisrael, they have good lineage. V'livdok achar mishpachos Bavel, and they said we have to inspect, we have to do bedika after all the families of Bavel. Kol haboim lisa misham yisha. Anyone who wants to marry a woman from Bavel, there has to be an investigation in such a situation. So Bavel should really be secondary in terms of lineage to Eretz Yisrael. That's what they wanted to do in the days of Rebbe. Amar Leheni said to them, Kotzim atem mesimim li bein einai. You're putting thorns between my eyes. Ritzonchem yitafel imachem Rabbi Chanina bar Chama. If you want, let Rabbi Chanina bar Chama, he'll explain to you, he'll answer why what you're trying to do is incorrect. Rashi says, Kotzim atem mesimim bein einai. You're putting thorns between my eyes. It's an expression which means essentially Rebbe was saying, you're insulting me by wanting to do this. Mishum de Rebbe mi mishpachas Bavel hay. The reason why Rebbe was insulted is because he was from Bavel. He was from a family from Bavel. Mibnei Bonav shel Hillel, from the descendants of Hillel. Sha'ala v'kibel nisiyuso shel b'nei Beseira. He came up and he received the nisiyus. He received the leadership from the b'nei Beseira. That's what happened. They essentially came from Bavel. And so he said, Yitafel lechem Rabbi Chanina. He said, let Rabbi Chanina deal with this question, lahashivchem davar, to give you a response why this is not something that you're supposed to be doing. And so the Gemara continues, Nitafeli moim Rabbi Chanina bar Chama. Rabbi Chanina bar Chama, he came to them to explain it to them. Amar lehem, he said to them, Ka'ach mekublani me Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. This is my tradition from Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. Sha'amar mishamaviv, who said in the name of his father, Kol haratzos Isa l'Eretz Yisrael, that all lands are considered Isa to Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael Isa l'Bavel, and Eretz Yisrael is Isa to Bavel. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. B'mei Rabbi Pinchas, in the days of Rabbi Pinchas, bikshu lasos Bavel Isa l'Eretz Yisrael. They wanted to make Bavel in terms of lineage secondary to Eretz Yisrael. Amar Lohem, he said, Amar Lohem la'avodav, he said to his servants, Kishani Omer Shnei Devarim bebeis hamedrash, when I say two things in the beis medrash, Taluni ba'arisa, put me into the stretcher, Verutzu, and then you should run me out of there, because they're going to try to chase me down when I say these things. Rashi says, Taluni ba'arisa verutzu shelo yifash v'shu achar devar, this way they won't be able to inspect, investigate what I'm saying, v'yetzarach legalos mishpachos, because what he's about to talk about his lineage, then he's going to have to reveal families which are flawed. V'hu hayazaken v'lo hayayachol lorutz, he was an old man, he wasn't able to run, and so that's why he instructed his servants accordingly. And so the Gemara says, Kiyayil, when he went up, Amar Lahem, he said to them, the first halacha he said he was going to say two things in the beis medrash. The first halacha he said was, Ein shchita la'of min haTorah, there is no shchita for birds, mida oraisa. And Rashi explains, Amar Lohem ein shchita la'of, davar shu teimu. This was just something that was surprising to them. V'lo gilu lehem taimu, he didn't want to reveal to them the reason for this. Kedei shu terudim b'svar harishona, this way they'd be busy dealing with the first thing that he said, v'lo yachzeru achar tam hashniya, and they wouldn't be able to investigate the second thing he's about to say, ad sheyipater mehem, until he leaves them. B'tam dein shchita la'of min haTorah. Now the reason why there is no shchita for birds min haTorah, b'shchita aschul in yolef mi v'shafach es damo b'shvicha bi'alma. That's learned from the pasuk. B'shafach es damo, that's learned in Meseches chulin. So in any case, that was his first halacha. He said the first halacha that mido raisa, there is no shchita for oaf, there is no shchita for birds. Now when they were sitting and investigating this first halacha, Amar Lahu, he said to them, Kol haratzos yisel Eretz Yisrael ve'Eretz Yisrael yisel Bavel. He said the second halacha, all lands are considered secondary when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael is secondary when it comes to Bavel. Netalu ba'arisa v'ratzu, and they put him into the stretcher and they ran, and ratzu acharav, and the people they ran after him. V'lo higiyuhu, and they weren't able to reach him, so they weren't able to ask him again who are these families of flawed lineage that he's referring to. Yashvu vadku, so they said and they investigated the families of Eretz Yisrael at shehigiu l'sakana, until they reached a dangerous situation. Upirshu, and at that point they separated. They no longer tried to investigate these families. And Rashi says, Yashvu vadku b'mishpachos Eretz Yisrael levaras devar. They investigated the families of Eretz Yisrael to clarify his words. Kevan shehigiu l'sakana, but then it came to a situation of danger. Lifsol mishpachos anshe zeroa sheyargum pershu. Now was a situation where they were disqualifying or attempting to disqualify families that were strong families that would kill them, and so they separated from this investigation. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Heichla, means to say a language of a shvua, a language of an oath, by the palace of the king, by the Beis HaMikdash, we take an oath, so to speak. B'yadenu, it really is in our hands, it's in our power. In other words, we are able to reveal who these families are. Avol ma eseh, but what should I do? Sharei gedolei hador nitmu ba, because the greatest ones of the generations, they're also assimilated into these families. Savar like Rabbi Yitzchak, he holds like Rabbi Yitzchak. Diyamar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Mishpacha shenitma, once a family is assimilated, it's assimilated, there's nothing further that we should do. And Rashi says, Heichal shvua beheichal shamakam. Again, this is like a shvua by the palace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'yadeinu hu legalos psul mishpachos Eretz Yisrael. It's in our power to reveal the disqualifications of these families in Eretz Yisrael. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya says, Af anon nami tanina, we learned like this in a Mishnah as well, Mishpachas Beis HaTzreifa Hoisa, Be'ever HaYarden, there was a family, Beis HaTzreifa, that was on the other side of the Yarden, V'richka Ben Sion Bezroa, and Ben Sion, he distanced that family with strength. He used strength to say that it was not pure. Ora Cheres Hoisa, and then there was another family, V'kirva Ben Sion Bezroa, and that family Ben Sion brought close, using his force, using strength. Kagon Elu, and when it comes to these situations, Eliyahu Balatami Ulatahir, Eliyahu Navi is the one that comes to say that it's impure, to say that it's pure, L'rachek Ulakarev, to make some distant, to make some close. Kagon Elu Diyadin. Now that when we say Kagon Elu, like these, we mean to say the families that are known in this fashion. Aval Mishpacha Shenitma. But again, once you have a family that's already been assimilated, it is assimilated. We don't go and clarify after the fact. And Rashi explains Beis HaTzreifa, Shem HaMishpacha. Again, Beis HaTzreifa, that's the name of a family. We'll go one Rashi back. Tanina, we learned this in a Mishnah. T'chol Mishpacha Shenitma, that again, any family that's assimilated is assimilated. Dein lahafrisho l'harchiko l'varis safek mitumeim. You're not supposed to separate them out, distance them, and try to clarify the nature of their assimilation. Mi nitma, mi lo nitma, who is assimilated, who's not. Elianichum v'hem safek v'hem ksherim lasid lavo. You just leave it as it is, and it'll be kosher in the future. In any case, again, Beis Hatzreifa Shem HaMishpacha. Beis Hatzreifa was the name of the family. Ben Sion Adam Choshev V'Zaroa. Ben Sion was an important person. He was a strong person. Richka Hichriz Shein Psul, and Richka means he announced that they were pasul. But in the future, Eliyahu will come, lost love in the future. Dechsiv V'Heishav Leivavos Al Bonim Zemi Bnei Bonav Shel Zeh. In other words, Eliyahu will clarify. Really, these people are actually going to be kosher. He'll clarify the particular situations, and that is by the Diyadu, and that's by the ones that are known. Shakol Machzikim Osam Bepsulim Sheniskarvu Bizroa, meaning to say, all of these people who there was a chazaka, there was a presumption that they have flawed lineage, and they were brought close Bizroa by force, so that will be clarified. Aval Mishpacha Shenitma, but let's say you have a situation of a family that's actually assimilated. Machmas Shalono da Psula Nitma, meaning to say, let's say you have a family that's assimilated and there was no real known, the reason why it was assimilated was because nobody knew about the flawed lineage, so that already is considered to be assimilated. We don't deal with clarifying the psul, we don't deal with clarifying the flaws within that family. And the idea over here is that, again, if you have these families that they were allowed to be assimilated within Klal Yisrael by force, and people know there are flaws in that lineage, so then again Eliyahu will come and he'll clarify that that is the case. But if you have situations where it was unknown and they became assimilated, that Eliyahu will not deal with. And the Gemara continues, Tana was taught, Oda Cheres said there was another family, V'lo Ratzu Chachamim Legalosa, and the Chacham did not want to reveal what family it was. Avol Chachamim Moser Moso Livneim Uletalmidein, but the Chachamim do transmit this knowledge to their children and to their students, Pamachas Bashavua, one time every Shemitah cycle, V'yamri La Pamayim B'Shavua, some say 2 times every Shemitah cycle. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, Mistabrak Man Damar Pamachas B'Shavua. It makes sense to say, like the one who says it's just one time every Shemitah cycle. Kedetanya, as we learned in a brayso, Hareini Nazir, Im Lo Agala Mishpachos. Let's say a person says, I'm going to be a Nazir if I don't reveal these families. So Yeh Nazir V'lo Yagala Mishpachos. It's better that he be a Nazir and not reveal the families, and that's why it makes sense to say that we're limiting the spread of this information as much as possible, just one time during the Shemitah cycle. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabba Bar Barchana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabba Bar Barchana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Shem ben Arba Osios, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's 4 letters, meaning Yud Kei Vav Kei, Chachamim Moser Nosol Talmidei, the Chachamim, they give over the proper pronunciation of that name to their students, Pam Achas B'Shavua, V'Amri Lo Pamayim B'Shavua, one time every Shemitah cycle, some say 2 times every 7 years. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, Mistabra Command Amar Pam Achas B'Shavua, it makes sense like the one who says one time every 7 years, T'chsiv, like it says in the pasuk, as it's written, Zashmi Liolam, it says this is my name forever, but La'aleim Ksiv, the way it's written is like La'aleim, it should be hidden, meaning to say keep the proper pronunciation hidden. Rava Savar Lemidrashe Bepirka, Rava thought to darshan out in the public shir, at the public shir, to say how to pronounce the name. Amar Le'ahusab, a certain elder said to him, La'aleim Ksiv, again it's written as if you should keep it hidden, so you should not publicize it. Rabbi Avino Rami, Rabbi Avina says, the following contradiction, Ksiv Zeshemi, Ksiv Zezichri. It says, this is my name, and then it says, this is my Zecher, this is my remembrance. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when it says Zichri, it means to say that you're mentioning it. So, Lo Kishani Nichtav Ani Nikra, the way I'm written is not the way that I'm read. Nichtav Ani B'Yud Hey, it's written with a Yud and a Hey, V'Nikra B'Alef Dalet, but the way it's pronounced is Aleph Dalet, just like we pronounce the name of Hashem. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Barishon Hashem ben Shteim Esrei Osios Hayamosron Oso L'chol Adam. In the beginning, the name of Hashem, that's 12 letters, they would give it to any person. Misha Rabu HaPritzim, but when the immodest people increased, Hayamosron Oso L'tzinuim Shebekahuna, they gave over the pronunciation, they gave over the name only to the hidden ones, to the modest ones really of the Kahuna. V'atznuim Shebekahuna Mavliim Oso B'ni'imas Achem HaKohanim. And these modest Kohanim, they would absorb the proper pronunciation while their brothers, the Kohanim, were singing. In other words, at the Birchas Kohanim, when they were singing the tunes, so that's when the name would be said in a way that other people wouldn't be able to hear it. Tanya, we learned in a brayso, Amar Rabbi Tarfon says, Pam achas olisi achar achi imi l'duchen. One time I went after the brother of my mother. He was up at the duchen by the Birchas Kohanim. Vitesi ozni eitzel Kohen Gadol, and I leaned my ear to the Kohen Gadol to try to listen. V'shamati shivli Hashem b'ni'ima sechav HaKohanim. And I heard that he actually absorbed the name while his brethren, the Kohanim, were singing. That's how he hid the name. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Shem ben Arboim Ushtayim Osios, the name of Hashem that's 42 letters, Ein Moshe no Soel Elami, Shetzanua v'Anav, you only give it over to somebody who's modest and humble, V'Yomed B'Chatzi Yomav, and he's lived already half of his life, V'Eino Kois, he doesn't get angry, V'Eino Mishtaker, he doesn't get drunk, V'Eino Maimed Al Midosav, he's not strict about things, he lets things go, V'Chol Hayodo, and anybody who knows this name, V'Hizirbo, and he's careful with it, V'Meshamro B'Tar, and he watches over it in purity, Ehov L'Mala V'Nechmad L'Mata, he's beloved above, he's treasured below, Ve'Imasom Mutelas Alabrios, and his fear is upon people, meaning to say, people give him respect, V'Nochel Shnei Olamim, and he'll inherit two worlds, Ha'olam Hazeh, V'Olam Haba, he'll inherit Olam Hazeh, and Olam Haba. And the Gemara continues, Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, Mishmei Desab, in the name of the elder, Bavel Bechezkas Keshero Medis. Bavel, there's a presumption of kashrus. Until you find out, until you have knowledge that there's some kind of psul. Shara Rosas, when it comes to other lands, it's the opposite. Bechezkos Psul Hein Omdos. So there's a presumption of disqualification. Unless you know that the situation is kosher. Eretz Yisrael, when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, Muchzik L'Psul Pasul, if you have a family with a presumption of psul, then it's pasul. Muchzik L'Kosher, kosher, if there's a presumption of kashrus in that family, then it's kosher. And the Gemara says, Hagufa kasha, that's internally contradictory. Amrit muchzik l'psul pasul. First you say about Eretz Yisrael, that if there's a presumption of psul, then pasul. Hastama kasha, that means if there's nothing, we assume kosher. V'hadar tani muchzik l'kosher kosher, but then it says that if there's a presumption of kashrus, it's kosher. Hastama pasul, that implies that if there's no presumption whatsoever, it's actually pasul. And the Gemara says to that, Rav Huna bar Tachlifa mishmei de Rav. Rav Huna bar Tachlifa says in the name of Rav, lo kasha, it's not difficult, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Aleph Amud Beis.